Let's see. Good morning. Can we still
Good
be
morning.
heard?
Can hear you well. Greetings, Ambassador.
Good morning, good evening.
Welcome those of you who are coming in early to the launch of our Mekong-US Partnership Track 1.5 Policy Dialogue report on nature-based solutions. We're going to get started here in a few minutes, but we want to give you all a little bit of time to get in the virtual room before we begin. Well, there's no better time than now to begin. Welcome, everyone. My name is Brian Eiler. I'm the director of the Stimson Center's Southeast Asia program, and it's an honor to welcome you to the launch of our fifth report in the Mekong-US Partnership Policy Dialogue series. And this report is on nature-based solutions. This report comes from a Track 1.5 meeting or conference that was held in Bangkok last December that convened more than 60 people from 10 countries, including the countries of the Mekong, to explore opportunities and ways that nature or nature-based solutions can add value to our economies, make our coastlines, cities, and natural areas more resilient, and provide benefits for all of us. And that requires work. It requires us to work to allow nature to do work. And tonight we're going to hear from a number of panelists, various ways and challenges that lie ahead in restoring nature and promoting nature-based solutions throughout the Mekong. We held the conference, which was co-hosted with our partner, IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature. And my good colleagues, Raphael Glamet and Katie Bimson, are here tonight from IUCN. Raphael served as the co-chair of the conference, and our program's deputy director, Courtney Weatherby, who's actually at a conference in Malaysia now, and can't be with us. She was the other co-chair, and it's been her work that put this report, this event, and also the conference together. So if we can all just kind of applaud for Courtney, she's done a wonderful job in bringing this conference and its outputs forward. Just a quick note on the Mekong-US partnership. We've done this numerous times, and again, this is one of 5 launches so far of reports from past conferences. So I just want to share some of my own kind of personal observations on the Mekong-US partnership. The Mekong-US partnership is the United States governments and the State Department's foreign policy mechanism or regional mechanism for engaging with the Mekong countries. It began as the Lower Mekong Initiative, and it's transformed into now the Mekong-US Partnership. And what's great about the partnership is exactly that. It's a partnership. It focuses on creating networks, collegial work among partners, among institutions that aren't just government to government. But these partnerships are formed between governments and non-government institutions, civil society organizations, between grassroots organizations and the media. And it forms a nexus that really embodies kind of the values that the United States and the Mekong agree on and have a consensus on. And we're going to hear some of those values tonight. And I really think it's a very impressive form of outreach from the United States. You know, for me to be working for a nonprofit organization, a think tank in Washington, D.C., and to be able to form partnerships through the Mekong-US Partnership with institutions and stakeholders in the region. It's just a really great thing. And it expresses the kind of productive relationships that the United States seeks to form and achieve, and the impacts the U.S. Seeks to achieve within the region. And another great thing about the partnership is that it listens to people in the region on the ground. And that's what we're going to hear tonight. We brought together more than 60 participants from those community-based organizations, from civil society and governments, to all have a conversation together and produce a set of policy recommendations that the U.S. government will pore over, that development partners will look deeply at, and importantly, that governments and stakeholders in the region will consider for positive results moving forward. So with that, it's a pleasure to introduce our first keynote speaker of the night. And what a great pleasure it is to invite Ambassador Robert F. Godek, who is the U.S. Ambassador to Thailand, to open our event with remarks. Ambassador Godek gave the keynote at our conference in Bangkok in December, and he was confirmed as Ambassador to Thailand in August of last year. He's been an ambassador to a number of countries, previously serving in Kenya and Tunisia, and holding other recent positions, including Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs and Senior Coordinator for Afghanistan in the Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration. Ambassador, it's a pleasure to see you again. Thank you for delivering our keynote tonight. Over to you.
Brian, thank you very much to everyone. Good evening, good morning, hello, sawadee ka. Wherever everyone is, welcome. It's wonderful to be here. I just want to say a very special thank you to the Stimson Center, to Brian, you, to everyone, everybody who's worked on bringing this event together and giving me an opportunity to speak. Certainly also the International Union for Conservation of Nature for co-chairing what was clearly a very fruitful policy dialogue that took place. I also want to recognize Ambassador Chairat of the Thai Ministry of Foreign Affairs Mekong Cooperation Unit. Congratulations on your new role, and I very much look forward to our partnership. To all of the participants who are joining today, it's certainly my pleasure to join with you all to launch the port with recommendations related to nature-based solutions to the Mekong subregion. The recommendations, of course, come out of the Mekong-US Partnership Track 1.5 dialogue that Brian mentioned and that I was honored to participate in or be part of in Bangkok last December. As I said then, weaving natural processes into development can protect resources for local communities across the Mekong subregion. Nature-based solutions can promote adaptation and resilience to climate change, reduce flood risk, improve water quality, protect coastal areas, restore and protect wetlands, and reduce urban heat. And these are all really critical challenges, all the more so here in the Mekong subregion, home to one of the world's most vital river basins and a source of life for millions of people. The Mekong subregion is at real risk from the impacts of climate change and rapid urban expansion. When I had the opportunity to open the policy dialogue in December, I wished the participants productive discussions and urged them to come up with concrete recommendations and policy actions. And now, having seen an advanced copy of the report, I can say you all succeeded. I mean, everybody who contributed to that really did exactly what I think everyone hoped for. Came up with some great recommendations and policy actions. The participants, of course, in the December dialogue focused on critical challenges and needs related to food security, disaster risk reduction, urban resilience, governance, and financing for nature-based solutions. And many of those recommendations echo those from the U.S. National Climate Task Force report outlining how nature-based solutions can accelerate climate progress. We don't want to stop with policy reports. We want to work together to actually address these issues. This year, as it happens, we are marking 190 years of U.S.-Thai diplomatic relations. And as part of this, the United States very much wants to face these challenges in partnership with Thailand and our partners in the broader Mekong subregion. To advance these efforts, we want to weave together the Mekong region and U.S. expertise to find more sustainable solutions to our biggest challenges, big challenges like climate change. As we strive to reduce emissions and to adapt to climate change, we need to unlock the power of nature to protect local communities and the lives of our children and grandchildren. We need nature-based solutions to help us sequester and store additional carbon, stabilize climate cycles, adapt to climate impacts, and support the Earth's biodiversity. Restoring, conserving, sustainably managing ecosystems is essential to combating climate change. It's estimated that nature-based solutions on land can provide at least 1/3 of the emissions reductions we need to keep the 1.5 degrees Celsius target of the Paris Agreement within reach. In one of President Biden's first actions in office, he committed to conserving at least 30% of U.S. land and water by 2030. Following his policy dialogue in December, we welcomed the landmark commitment of the same goal by the parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity. Here in Thailand, the government is also committed to restoration efforts via its 1 million Rai reforestation project. The United States has a lot of experience to share with Mekong partners when it comes to nature-based solutions. And frankly, there's also a lot we can learn from our partners in this region. You all have a lot to share with us as well. The Mekong-US partnership represents the whole of government approach we take in addressing transboundary challenges in the Mekong region. Under the Mekong-US partnership, we include collaboration with over 14 US government agencies and departments and over 50 programs to strengthen cooperation between the United States and the Mekong member states. Since 2009, the United States has invested $4.9 billion in assistance in Mekong countries under the Mekong-US partnership. Much of that investment aims to support sustainable development and prosperity of the Mekong subregion, including through nature-based solutions. Here in Thailand, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has worked with cities such as Udon Thani in Northeast Thailand to help city planners find nature-based solutions for flood management that also added public recreation areas. Regionally, the United States supports critical environmental, social, and governance standards for more sustainable infrastructure development via programs like the USAID in Australia Mekong Safeguards Program. We also seek to provide essential data for decision makers, to include those at the community level. In January, I was pleased to launch the USAID NASA Surveyor Southeast Asia program, which builds off the successful Surveyor Mekong program. And this program connects satellites to villages to ensure communities have information they need about what's happening and what's likely to happen in the near term in their area. We also provide key data through the Mekong Water Data Initiative, which includes the Mekong Dam Monitor. The United States also supports the Sister Cities Exchange between the Mississippi and Mekong River Commission so that government officials can share best practices in considering nature when managing river resources with input from local river communities. The Sustainable Infrastructure Partnership, which the multilateral Friends of Mekong established, conducts training on flood and drought, dam impact, and groundwater management for Mekong River managers. Importantly, to underpin all our work, we continue to empower a diverse range of partners to protect local natural resources and livelihoods via programs to support youth and civil society, such as Mekong Connections, the USAID Mekong for the Future program, and Mekong Youth programs. Late last year, I had the honor of hosting U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris in my home for a discussion with environmental activists and leaders in clean energy in the Mekong. And the Vice President's engagement reaffirmed our steadfast support for the people of the Mekong subregion and further engagement on transboundary issues. Everyone at the table was working to find nature-based solutions to their specific problem set. and they were bringing tremendous passion and innovation and creativity to bear. It was truly an inspiring moment. I realize the region and the world are facing many ongoing and emerging challenges these days. And the United States wants to face these challenges in partnership with the Mekong subregion. By working on the challenges together, we can meet and come up with solutions. Together, we can truly make the world a better place for everyone. Thank you to everyone for joining today, and I look forward to a very successful session. Thanks very much, Brian.
Thank you, Ambassador, for those remarks. And I'm glad you highlighted the interaction that Vice President Kamala Harris had with local civil society leaders back late last year. And what a wonderful opportunity for her to hear ways that civil society in Thailand is promoting nature-based solutions. I think there are many champions active in Thailand that drive this discourse and solution set forward. So thanks for bringing that up. And I know you've got a busy schedule. So if you've got to run off, please feel free to do so anytime, but stick around if you can and hear what the panelists and participants in our conference came away with over that 2-day experience. Thank you again, Ambassador. We're now going to move to our second keynote from Ambassador Thairat Sirawat, who is an ambassador for the Mekong Cooperation Unit at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Thailand. And he's recently joined to lead the unit. So Ambassador, welcome, and Sawadee Kap. Thank you for your service to the Mekong. Ambassador Thairat Sirawat joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the late 1980s in the Division of International Economic Affairs. And he, like Ambassador Godek, has served all over the world. Ambassador Thairat Sirawat served in Italy, Kuwait, United States, Singapore, and United Arab Emirates in various capacities with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Thailand. And again, he's recently joined the Mekong Cooperation Unit in 2023. Ambassador, thank you for joining us. Over to you.
Thank you. Excellency Ambassador Godek, distinguished panelists, dear MUSP colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen. Sawadee Krap. A very good morning from Bangkok. It is my great pleasure to join Ambassador Godek and all of you today for the launching of the summary report of the Mekong-US Partnership Track 1.5 Policy Dialogue on Nature-Based Solutions. The activity was successfully organized by the Stimson Center last December in Bangkok. 2 weeks ago, the Mekong-US Partnership, or MUSP member countries just gathered in Vientiane, Lao PDR, for the Track 1 Policy Dialogue to discuss and plan for the work ahead in the year 2023, as well as to prepare for the new MUSP Plan of Action 2024 to 2026. Key issues discussed include challenges in sustainable natural resource management, particularly transboundary water management and impacts of climate change on food security in the Mekong subregion. There were also sessions for experts and stakeholders from various fields to exchange the views on how the MUSP could improve and promote sub-regional cooperation to address such challenges in an effective and sustainable manner. Is what pointed out by most experts and stakeholders in the Vientiane meeting that MUSP's outstanding feature was the process of policy consultation. In particular, a series of the Track 1.5 Policy Dialogue has helped collect useful insights and feedbacks for designing suitable cooperation programs and activities in response to the need of the Mekong people. Therefore, I am pleased to welcome the launch of the summary report today, as its input will be valuable for the drafting of the next MUSP Plan of Action. I would also like to commend the efforts and contribution of those involved for further promoting of nature-based solution or NBS approach in order to build economic recovery and long-term resilience, and at the same time achieve the Sustainable Development Goals or SDGs in the Mekong sub-region. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic has left us all critical impacts on the global socio-economic development. For the sub-region, it is a wake-up call for the Mekong countries. We must seriously consider adopting appropriate development approaches for recovery that could build back better, smarter, greener, and safer to achieve both sustainable future and future sustainability. Thailand has incorporated the sufficiency economy philosophy or SEP, a homegrown sustainable development approach conceived by His Majesty the late King Bhumibol Adulyadej the Great, into our national economic and social development plans since 2002. More importantly, Thailand has promoted the SEP for the realization of SDG as well as established the SEP for SDG partnership as an effort to advance sustainable development agenda on the South-South cooperation, which include every Mekong country. In a broad sense, the SEP is similar to the nature-based solution, even its solution partly involve gray infrastructure. In practicality, could contribute towards the transition of the NBS in the long run. Let me provide an example on water and soil conservation utilizing the SEP approach in Thailand. On one hand, some SEPs project focus on irrigation infrastructure construction for prudent water management and control. On the other hand, there are initiatives on wet river grass plantation, which has been acclaimed for the use of living nature to solve soil erosion and replenish the soil quality to enhance eco-friendly and sustainable agriculture. Furthermore, Thailand has recognized the importance of the biodiversity conservation and climate action as integral part of sustainable development. At national level, we adopt the biocircular green or BCG economy model, as well as the post-pandemic recovery approach, and to drive the innovation-based economy with inclusivity and sustainability, as well as aligning the strategy for the SEP for the SDG. On the global stage, Thailand support the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. We aim to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 and net zero greenhouse gas emission by 2065. Distinguished panelists, dear MUSP colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen, speaking on the needs and opportunities to promote the collaboration on the NBS in the Mekong sub-region, in particular through the MUSP, I wish to encourage all of you to explore further the idea of putting the green in the gray. As the Mekong country has primarily been counting on the modern day science and engineering to answer nature challenges, there is still an ample opportunity to integrate natural assets with existing tools and modernity for more sustainability. In this sense, a hybrid approach is quite practical for the time being to convince government and stakeholders in the sub-region to gradually move towards the NBS approach. On Thailand part, we could contribute to the promotion of NBS from the people level. We can further utilize projects on the sustainable community development based on application of SEP and the SEP Learning Center, which Thailand International Cooperation Agency or TICA has implemented in every Mekong country. Moreover, TICA has offered scholarship for short-term and long-term training courses on various issues related to NBS components for Mekong countries, including SEP promotion, climate change, agriculture, food security, and BCG model. Within the MUSP, member countries are preparing for the new 3 years plan of action, into which new projects on the NBS could be put forward and incorporated. Among MUSP projects already exist, they include a sustainable infrastructure partnership or SIP, smart infrastructure for Mekong or SIM, and US ASEAN Smart City Business Innovation Fund. This leading project could assist sub-regional capacity building in the remote sensing, social and environmental safeguards, and sustainable finance, all of which are essential factors for the success of the NBS practices. Additionally, we can consider creating synergy and complementary among similar projects and activities under the various Mekong cooperation frameworks to better promote the NBS. ACMEX, a homegrown framework collectively initiated and led by all 5 Mekong countries, could be utilized as a connector. I believe the USAID Regional Development Mission for Asia can explore ways for further collaboration with TICA to support capacity building projects under ACMEX Pillar 3, Smart and Sustainable ACMEX, which are related to the NBS in alignment with those in the MUSP. In concluding, the NBS is an emerging concept which the Mekong sub-region could embrace as sustainable development agenda, since some of the elements have already been practiced through the existing policy, principle, and approaches, such as Thailand's own SEP and BCG. We could do more to promote greening, including NBS approach in our path to long-term development, as well as sustainable recovery for the betterment of the Mekong sub-region and livelihood of the Mekong people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Thiratsirawat. And wow, so much to remark on. I'm glad that you used the phrase "putting the green into the gray," because indeed, one of the themes of our conference was gray-green infrastructure, and striking the balance between gray-green infrastructure and promoting more green than gray. And I think we're going to hear more about this as we go. Ambassador, I look forward to meeting you in Bangkok or in Washington when you come to Washington, and talking about ways to strengthen the Mekong-US partnership, as well as Thailand's initiatives in the Mekong. Thank you for joining us, and feel free to stick around for the question and answer session. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
I'm going to now pass the virtual microphone over to my colleague Raphael Glamet from IUCN, who will lead us into our panel discussion. And we thought it would be best for Raphael, who is a global champion of NBS, or nature-based solutions, to first give us a bit of an overview of where what NBS is and where it is currently in the Mekong in terms of progression and implementation throughout the countries of the Mekong. So Raphael, over to you, and I look forward to your section of our launch event tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thanks to Ambassador Godek and Ambassador Thiratsirawat for this inspiring remark, which I think provide a good foundation for the discussion we'll have today. So before we move on, maybe it's important to remind ourselves on what we mean by nature-based solution, or NBS. The first definition of nature-based solution was adopted in 2016 by IUCN members, and define nature-based solutions are actions on ecosystem, protecting, sustainably managing, or restoring natural and modified ecosystem to address societal challenge and simultaneously benefiting people and nature. So really the two dimensions of nature-based solution. This definition was followed a few years later in 2022 by a resolution of the fifth session of the United Nations Environment Assembly, recognizing the important role NBS play in the global response to climate change and its social, economic, and environmental effects. So NBS, nature-based solutions, are underpinned by the benefits of the ecosystem services that flow from healthy ecosystem. They can tackle major challenges like climate change, disaster risk reduction, food and water security, biodiversity loss, human health, and they're really critical to sustainable economic development. I could say that the past decade focused on convincing, defining nature-based solution, developing framework for its implementation. As I said, IUCN members worked on developing a definition, but also an associated global standard for the design, the implementation, and monitoring of NBS. We see now a major move or a switch toward the integration of a nature-based solution within policies and really looking at the implementation at scale. So moving from the demonstration dimension to really integrating that across sector and a large scale within countries and regions. Some of the largest donors are increasingly funding nature-based solutions approaches. Global processes like the UNFCCC COPs are looking closely at the benefits from nature in tackling climate. The demand from government is increasing, and the requests are now more on how to implement nature-based solutions rather than if we need to use nature-based solutions. So the Mekong-US Partnership Policy Dialogue on NBS, nature-based solution, and the associated report, which we are launching today, come at an exciting time for the implementation of NBS at scale. As we are moving to this phase of upscaling nature-based solution, integrating it within policies, it's important to first do a stock taking of the best practices, stakeholders in the region, and to identify new issues and solutions to move forward. So this is exactly what the policy dialogue on nature-based solutions looked at in last December. We discussed nature-based solution for disaster risk reduction and climate resilience, nature-based solution for food security, the integration of green and gray infrastructure, governance for nature-based solution, finance, and also youth engagement. So the policy-oriented recommendations have been captured in the report that we are launching today. And to report on some of this session today, we'll have several speakers from the region, which have led best practices, which can inspire initiatives across the Mekong region. They come here as ambassadors from the policy dialogue held in December, and to present in around 5 minutes each some of the key recommendations which are mentioned in the report. So we'll have a series of short presentation and elements from the report, and we'll then open the floor for discussion with the audience. So please put your question in the Q&A box and indicate if possible who the question is for. I'll be monitoring that and facilitating this. So with no further delay, let's start our panel discussion and presentation with Ms. Diep Bui, co-director of Keep Vietnam Clean. Our area of work focuses on urban green spaces, climate smart agriculture, and waste management. She will be sharing takeaways and feedback from the session on urban resilience and disaster risk reduction theme. Diep Bui, over to you.
Thank you, Rafael. Good morning and good evening, everyone. My name is Diep. I'm from Keep Vietnam Green. First of all, thank you all thank you IUCN and Simpson for having us to come here today. And I would like to share my screen. First of all, I would like to introduce one about KVC. Based in Vietnam, and we started in 2016 a group of volunteers who are very passionate about environment and want to improve the condition of the city we are living, which is Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. So we started in 2016, and so far we include 5,000 volunteers. And in 2018, we become a social enterprise that focus on climate, smart climate, agriculture, urban green space, and waste management through 6 programs like research and policy, education, urban beautification, climate, eco lifestyle, CSIOS consulting. So here's some photos. We do training the farmer for soil conservation and practice regenerative agriculture. And this is a photo that we have a site visit with representative of the U.S. Embassy for one of our project site, Greenland, that we want to push further, push the first urban nature park in Hanoi, Vietnam, which is called like Banana Island, or like in Vietnamese it's called Bãi Giữa Sông Hồng. So why is it important? Because like Vietnam right now is a developing country, and there's if we face a different challenging environment and challenging like lack of green space, which cause loss of health issues or mental health, and because too much concrete. So so that's why Greenland could be a very potential way to tackle the current environmental crisis in Vietnam. And so here's some of our key takeaways from the last policy dialogue happening in Bangkok. That's it. First of all, for any like urban development, we should consider like a broader picture, including nature landscape. So it's not really have to treat like separately. It's have to consider the surrounding area, the community, the nature around it, and how choose like public education so the public can understand the value of the nature, and to like cost benefit analysis and research with consider full life cycle cost and land use change and ecosystem service evaluation. And next, it should be the involve all the related stakeholders like the CSO, community, social organization, NGOs, the youth community, so that they can engage into the process of develop the urban projects. And then the last is like we should have like master plan that including risk of urban development and benefit of protecting nature lands and process. So that's in my talk. Thank you. Oh.
Thank you very much, Diep Huy, co-director of Keep Vietnam Clean, for this remarks and comments on our session on urban NBS, but also the other session on disaster risk reduction. So I think we see that the theme of urban nature-based solution is growing. We see examples, demonstration across the region, and we identified issues or recommendations to move forward on really understanding the cost-benefit analysis of such program and integrating that within master plan as well. So moving from the demonstration side to something that is more integrated. We also had a nice visit of Benjakiti Park in Bangkok, which is one of the good examples of flood management through green space, which provide a number of additional benefits, recreational, biodiversity, etc., which complemented this session. So thank you very much again, and we can now move to our other speaker, Mr. Sinsamut Umbundesan, Lao Director and Fishery Biologist at Fish Bio. Is a fishery biologist with more than 20 years of experience in research and community development projects in the Mekong region in relation to aquatic resource management and conservation. And he has worked extensively on nature-based solutions for fisheries. So Mr. Sinsamut will be reporting on the discussion around nature-based solutions to support food security. Sinsamut, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning. My great pleasure to present the key summaries from our panelists related to food security sessions that have been in Bangkok last year related to natural-based solutions. As you know, that the fisheries and agriculture are the major contribution to the livelihood and food security and nutrition. And the way that we focusing on natural-based solutions related to the agriculture and fisheries, we are focusing on the challenge and to the fisheries and aquaculture, exploring the best practice on ecosystem and nature-based approach to the fisheries management and consideration on the case study and the best practice from our country members and both from their experience, and also focusing on the agriculture sessions from the keynote that from the session that have been taking place. We are focusing on the need of the better communication and the conflicts management between communities and the governments, and how we how to effectively manage the resources, especially the people in the Mekong regions, and the need to raise awareness related to individual activity or the plan to that can be impact to the ecosystem or any development of the projects in the Mekong area. And the last one, we are focusing on the need to improve the data collection, data process, and to ensure that the decisions maker have the basic information in hand when they have the formulating policy or taking final decisions from their plans. That's what the conclusion from the food security and fishery sessions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samut, for this summary of our session on food security. So looking at agriculture and also fisheries. When we talk fisheries, we're of course in the largest freshwater fisheries in the world, in the Mekong, with I think a value of 11 billion per year. So the management of fisheries is really moving from looking at it as, you know, quota regulation to also integrating now nature-based solutions. So conserving ecosystems that are important to support the fish stock, and this needs to be done at regional level. And indeed, on agriculture, we also look at the integration of ecosystem to support soil and water management. So thanks so much, and stay with us for questions. Just to remind participants, you can put your questions in the Q&A section, and then I'll make sure to address or share or facilitate the Q&A session a bit later. So moving on now to the session on governance for nature-based solution. A bit less technical, but very critical to a sustainable implementation of nature-based solution. So Ms. Catherine Bimson, Program Officer for Water, Wetlands and Nature-Based Solutions for Climate at IUCN, will share a takeaway on this session. She has been working extensively on nature-based solution and water and wetlands in the region for a number of years, and is working, of course, closely with me at IUCN. So Katie, over to you.
Thanks, Raphael. And thanks everyone for joining the session today. We had a very interesting discussion on governance, looking at some of the key obstacles to mainstreaming nature-based solutions at the legal, regulatory, and community levels during the policy dialogue. There's really a need to balance nature-based solutions with the local community needs to ensure this uptake and to ensure long-term viability of these NBS interventions. Some of the key issues we saw during the discussion and that we see during our work on nature-based solutions is first that there isn't really a shared understanding amongst all government stakeholders of what defines nature-based solutions and what makes a good nature-based solution. So there's really a need to shift this view of nature-based solutions, moving away from them being viewed as high risk and high liability projects to seeing the opportunities and highlighting the opportunities of nature-based solutions for local communities, but also for biodiversity and helping to adapt to climate change and reduce disaster risk. We see in the Mekong region, no country has a finalized national nature-based solution strategy, and it's rarely integrated in policies outside of just the environment sector. So there's a need to bring in additional sectors to work on nature-based solutions and to integrate it into their work. Thinking about sectors like agriculture, fisheries, planning departments, perhaps departments of engineering and public investment. Looking at some of the recommendations that came out of the discussion, we can have a strong leadership from these national agencies responsible for environmental issues, helping to develop some technical guidelines for each sector to help integrate nature-based solutions into their work. So, for example, policies on nature-based solutions for agriculture, looking at how rice, for example, can be a sort of nature-based solution if it's done correctly. National governments can also work with NGOs and other partners to help build a common definition of nature-based solutions. So again, Raphael mentioned this definition of nature-based solutions, but still it's seen as a very green, a very cute idea. There's a need to upscale this work to show that the many benefits that nature-based solutions can provide, and that it's not an unscientific approach. There's a lot of science, there's a lot of data behind nature-based solutions that needs to be highlighted as we move forward in our work. This is a role that scientific researchers and universities can play. We need to collect data on the baseline. We need to collect data following the nature-based solutions intervention to help evidence nature-based solutions, to show how it can support climate change and to highlight the vulnerabilities of communities that are facing climate change. And we also need to really quantify these ecosystem services that nature-based solutions are providing and help to highlight the many benefits that nature provides and that nature-based solutions can support. Looking at the national government and international commitments, there's a really big opportunity to mainstream nature-based solutions into decisions and strategies, and making sure we're communicating those decisions and highlighting the various aspects that NBS can support. So whether that's the UNFCCC, whether that's the UN Convention on Combating Desertification, there's many global commitments that nature-based solutions can be tied into and brought into support. In terms of international development partners and NGOs, we can help to provide technical assistance to review strategies and policies to strengthen nature-based solutions and to make sure it's well integrated into government policies at all levels, really. The second issue that was really highlighted by the discussion was on these silos that governments tend to work in and how this is not conducive to integrating nature-based solutions. If we're following a top-down approach to nature-based solutions, we really need to make sure we're building intersectoral dialogue and getting inputs from all of the sectors in the government. We need to ensure that we're working with the correct agencies, but we're also working with the correct stakeholders. So working with community leaders, indigenous people groups, perhaps faith leaders and others to ensure that the right people are in on the discussion, and that can help us to mainstream nature-based solutions. CSOs and NGOs can also really help by piloting nature-based solutions at a relatively small scale. And then the governments can see the effectiveness of this. They can see the data that's provided. They can see the benefits that are provided. And then governments can invest in upscaling these solutions. So while we have a lot of small examples of nature-based solutions throughout the region, there is a need to look at the connectivity between these and to upscale them at the greater level and make sure that they're complementary and supporting each other. We saw a really good example during the governance session of the Salween Peace Park in Myanmar, which was a very grassroots indigenous people-led community effort to conserve an area that provides a ton of ecosystem services, but is also very spiritually valuable and culturally valuable to the communities. So this is an example of a great initiative led by people that was then supported at a higher level, which can help to support some of these ecosystem services and is a great case study to look at, not just in the Mekong region, but at the global scale. Finally, just some key points on international development partner work. There's a huge role that international development partners can play with their focal agencies, supporting projects, as we heard earlier from Ambassador Godek, supporting projects at the international level and learning from international communities to help mainstream nature-based solutions in the Mekong region. So I think I'll end there, but there were a lot of great discussions that we weren't able to fully capture, but I think this highlights some of the key points.
Thanks, Katie. So the importance of governance, multi-level governance, across sector, the integration within policy, the idea of co-management. Also, I think that since Samut talked about also in the fishery section, really having joint initiative between governments and communities in developing nature-based solution, and also the integration of nature-based solution within global national targets. I think an example is the NDCs, National Determined Contribution under the UNFCCC. If we do a quick review of the NDCs of countries in the Mekong region, we realize the nature-based solution is mentioned here and there, but not reflecting well the value and the importance of and the potential of nature-based solution in tackling climate and on mitigation and adaptation. So there are quick wins that are possible with assistance, with support from development partners, from CSOs, from NGOs, and really ensuring that nature-based solutions are well reflected in governance and policy. Thank you again, Katie, and stay with us for some questions, I'm sure. So we'll now move to quick reporting on the session on financing nature-based solution. And this session, the key message will be shared by Ms. Ritini Teng, National Strategic Initiative Manager at WCS Cambodia. Ritini Teng works for WCS Cambodia program and focus on sustainable financing, especially related to REDD+ and climate finance and protected area management across priority landscape. So Ms. Ritini Teng, the floor is yours for some comments and remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Rafael, and good morning, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ritini from the Wildlife Conservation Society, WCS Cambodia. Yeah, and thank you for giving me the opportunity for joining this discussion today on the finance for nature-based solution. So it is important to have the finance for NBS to ensure that the long-term sustainability of the NBS approach. Without the long-term, NBS can put a risk being a short-term or a temporary project, which might leave the landscape and the local community worse off than before our any intervention. So it should be a go beyond the grant assistance. So enabling policy at the national level and the local level shift away from the relying on the donor funding and improving the value of the co-benefit of the ecosystem service. The donor funding support to the protect and to conserve forest and wildlife is not really stable, and sometimes is no funding, and sometimes we have more funding to support. So there is a need for a long-term financial support for the protection and sustainable of forest and wildlife, which help to reduce the carbon emission. So I would like to share the mechanism we call reducing emission from the deforestation and forest degradation, REDD+, which is one of the mechanisms that in reducing deforestation and forest degradation and provide a sustainable financing for supporting protected area and provide the climate, biodiversity, and the community benefit. It is a global funding mechanism to support forest conservation. So the GHG emitting company can purchase the carbon credit to offset their emission. So the carbon credit are bought and sold in the carbon market. So this mechanism provides a long-term participation of the government and the local communities in sustainable management of the natural resource. So I would like to give a case of the Kaisema Wildlife Sanctuary REDD+ project, which it trades through the voluntary carbon market. It become the Cambodia first sustainably finance protected area. The annual size of the budget for the conservation activity is increased from year to year. So the project avoided like 21 million tons of the GHG and can avoid like more than 25,000 hectares of deforestation in 2010s. It remained a stable of the world largest population of the black shantuk and yellow-cheeked gibbon. So it's more than 12,000 people as improved economic and social condition. So there are a number of the key elements for the success in nature-based solution for the carbon project and build the confidence for the investor. For example, like the standard. So the case of the Kasima project is certified again to standard like verified carbon standard and the community climate and biodiversity standard. So this gives the investor confidence in the GFG and environmental and social impact of the project. And the project used the third-party auditor to verify the project claim and it adherent again requirement of the standard. So it is strongly encouraged the including local community as a key project stakeholder and important for the long-term viability of the project. So it is a strong community focus for the Kasima project. So including like a cast for the community program, which direct share the carbon revenue directly to the communities. So however, those are the implement of a project, they are a cost to start up the project before the revenue can be received from the sale of the carbon credit. So the finance department and the national agency should set aside a public budget to support a kind of a pilot or scale up the nature-based solution approach to implement a long-term finance sustainability of the natural resources. So yeah, thank you. That is looking forward for more discussion.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ritini Teng from WCS Cambodia for these comments on one aspect of financing NBS and the RED Plus program and its achievements in the region. I think the session on finance was very rich with participation from some of the public donor like GCF explaining how they're looking increasingly at supporting blended finance for nature-based solution. So having grants or loan guarantees coming from Jeff, from GCF to de-risk the investments and the loans that country can take on nature-based solution. I think there's also an important role of the global and regional banks in investing more in nature-based solution, but overall a feeling from government that is still seen as a risky investment. So that's why public funding and the blended finance approach is a way to de-risk that. I think we also had talked about payment for ecosystem services and trying to integrate that within planning and policy. So a number of opportunities that are now available to governments, to CSOs, NGOs to start their project on nature-based solution, but also develop within this project sustainable finance. So the implementation of nature-based solution is long-lasting. So with this, we are finishing our series of short remarks and comments and feedback from the policy dialogue. I think overall what we saw throughout the discussion was quite common from one session to the other, with the need to really understand the societal challenge. What are we trying to tackle? What is the priority of communities, local stakeholders, and what needs to be the kind of core direction of a nature-based solution? We discussed a lot also throughout the session and over the 2 days on the issue of scale, really moving to large scale for nature-based solution, integrating nature-based solution at landscape level, national strategies, and we heard from several examples. Also important, nature-based solution is not only on providing benefits to humans or tackling a challenge for human societies, it's also to ensure biodiversity benefits. So how do we monitor that? How do we ensure that the project we develop are also contributing to biodiversity? The economic dimension was very important, as we just heard, the economic sustainability, putting in place trade-offs as part of the project with many ways and opportunities available. Sustainable governance also across the sessions, the need to develop government committees, bodies that include all relevant stakeholders and agencies, integrating recommendation within policies much beyond the environmental sector only, and also building and working with civil society organization, indigenous people group, and NGOs, which are often still leading the way on nature-based solution at implementation level. And finally, the importance of policy, making sure that we capture the policy learning from all these projects, all this experience, and that we can compile that in policy recommendations at national or regional level, and work closely with governments in improving the policy so they really provide the space for the implementation of nature-based solution at scale. So I think we have a few minutes left for question and answer. I see two questions in the Q&A, one from David Dumaresque, who has been quite active in a number of our dialogues. Can aquaculture become a sustainable nature-based solution to replace the loss of wild fish catch in the lower Mekong Basin? So that's the first question. The second question is, what are the NBS approach available for producing the feedstock required for the lower Mekong Basin aquaculture as a key component of regional food security? So I think that's a very interesting theme, and actually a growing theme within IUCN, also looking at nature-based solution for aquaculture. So, Sinsamud, will you be able to take that on board, since you are a fisheries expert? I know your focus is more on capture fisheries, but maybe you're able to answer this one.
Yes. Thank you for the questions. In my opinion, aquaculture can replace the food security, not the wide scale of the river basins, and more focus on commercial purpose and food security. But we have to have the control of invasive species or exotic species in our plants to maximize or to minimize the spread of exotic species in the river basin. But I think that aquaculture can help food security, nutrition, and also the income for the people, for the commercial purpose. But we have to have the rule or regulation to control that part. And aquaculture can one of the strategic planning for to increase some target species also in terms of decline of the population and abundance. So we have to consider the many aspects, including the genetic part. Yes.
Thank you, Sinsamud. Katie, would you like to add more? I know you're starting a review of the potential to integrate nature-based solution within aquaculture in Asia. So over to you for additional.
Yeah, so I think this is indeed a really important question. I think first, the most important thing maybe is to not look at aquaculture as a way to replace the loss of wild fisheries. I don't think aquaculture being very focused on a few key species for food security really represents the huge diversity of fish that we have in the Mekong Basin. So it's definitely not something that can replace this biodiversity here. We do see good examples of aquaculture in the region as a sort of nature-based solution. So IUCN and a number of partners in the region worked on projects like the Mangroves and Markets project, where we looked at restoring mangroves, looking at the biodiversity benefits that they provide in terms of acting as a nursery for fisheries, whether those are aquaculture fisheries or wild fisheries, and then supporting fishers in taking those fish to market and increasing the value because they are kind of more sustainable alternatives to the slash and burn agriculture and aquaculture that we see in mangroves traditionally. So this is a really important aspect of making sure, again, as Rafael mentioned about the NBS definition, making sure there is a biodiversity component. So how are we, through our nature-based solutions, supporting biodiversity? And in this case, restoring mangroves, providing the habitat for fisheries, providing that the trees for birds or water birds, and also how is that supporting community livelihood? So there's that food security that comes from it, but also a financial incentive, right? So they have increased income from this fish that's harvested more sustainably, or for these shrimp that are harvested more sustainably, and that encourages buy-in from the communities. In terms of the question on the second part of the question on sustainable feedstock, I'm actually not sure. I don't know that I've heard a lot about harvesting sustainable feedstock for aquaculture fisheries, but perhaps this is something that we'll find as we go through a bit of a literature review on best practices of NBS for aquaculture in the region and globally.
Thank you, Katie. I see Ambassador Chirivat has his hand up, so over to you. Please take the floor.
So regarding the fish farming, we have TICA, or Thailand International Cooperation Agency, that can help in making the fish farming courses for those for our Mekong countries to join us. At least people will know how to make it fish farming in the, especially for the rare and indigenous species of fish in Mekong River. So I think that through this cooperation and to this arm of TICA is under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Thailand, and I think the government side, we push forward the national strategy to help Mekong region, Mekong countries to have the under the SEP or sufficiency economic philosophy that we can help local community in fish farming and provide training course for fishery department of each country. So we will focus on that, and also we will teach them how to grow or make fish farming for indigenous rare species of fish in the Mekong region. So I think Thailand can help in making this happen in the near future.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for this additional elements on aquaculture. We have a few other questions in the Q&A section, so please put your questions still in. We still have around 10 minutes. Can the speaker say more about the most important elements and challenges facing the bankability of nature-based solution? How to attract blended finance for nature-based solution? So we would like to take this question. Ritini, would you be able to take this question? How can we attract blended finance to support nature-based solution, or someone else?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. This a great the important for the nature-based solution that, as said, we need finance to support the implementation of the nature-based solution. So the one of the key, the important for the public finance that should be allocated for nature-based solution, and creating of some of the finance that can manage the natural resource and the wildlife. For example, ecotourism, community community-based ecotourism, which also provide some of the finance that can support the local communities for their livelihood. Also, another case, like for example, in Cambodia, is that within our WCS, we have creates the kind of incentive like agriculture, we call IB's rice, that we implement. So those are, we provide the premium price to the local communities as incentive for them to participate and manage the natural resource and wildlife.
Thank you, Riniti. Very interesting. I think maybe a bit of my experience on attracting blended finance. I think that, again, donors like GCF and Jeff are increasingly looking at blended finance within the project that are sent. And they're really willing to provide all the de-risking financing possible through grants, loan guarantee, to work then with banks in investing on nature-based solutions. So I think a process is to really define the need with governments, identifying the need for loans or financing also for private sector, and then work jointly with banks and public public funds to build this blended finance. There's a number of examples that are being developed in the region, including one that is led by IUCN on wetlands-based adaptation, where we'll be looking at providing blended finance for the rice sector, fisheries sector, and ecotourism sector on wetlands to help them transition toward more kind of really wetlands-based businesses and nature-based solutions. So this will be done hopefully through loans provided through Proparco, which is kind of the financial mechanisms of the French AFD, complemented by grants and support from the Green Climate Fund. So there's many ways now to really look at that, and then supporting financial mechanisms at community level with revolving fund, with payment for ecosystem services, and mechanism that really help financing nature-based solution in the long term. The recipes, if you want, are here. Now it's really working with governments to explain that and build long-lasting projects. I think we have a few other questions. So still on finance, which is of course at the core of implementation of a nature-based solution. So how can we promote nature-based solution in public financing for public infrastructure development in the context of lacking costing code and standards? So we're indeed still talking about an engineering work, green engineering, and often lacking in this experience, those code of practices, those approaches and costing methodology that kind of still limit the investment on nature-based solution from public financing. We would like to take this question.
Maybe I can share some of our experiences
Go ahead,
working with Thailand. Great, thanks. And thanks for the great question. So maybe just to share some examples of what IUCN has been doing in working directly with the Office of National Water Resources, or ONWR, in Thailand. So with GIZ, the German Development Agency, IUCN recently responded to a need that was highlighted by ONWR. There were a lot of engineers. There's a heavy focus in Thailand, as Ambassador Sirivat mentioned. There's traditionally a heavy focus on gray infrastructure. But the Thai government is really looking to shift that, to move more towards hybrid solutions and to move more towards green infrastructure or nature-based solutions. So together with GIZ and ONWR, IUCN recently developed a guidebook for ecosystem-based adaptation or nature-based solutions for climate, specifically for the Thai water sector. So looking at 2 focal river basins, but also looking at developing a sort of a recipe for all river basins in the country on how they can move through the process of understanding the need for nature-based solutions, developing interventions, monitoring and implementing those interventions, and kind of evaluating them and mainstreaming these in policies. So the guidebook was recently launched just at the end of this year, finalized. And it's accompanied by a code of practice for engineers. So this is a sort of a guide with specific interventions that can be used throughout the river basin. So looking at interventions that can be used at the source. So looking at, for example, restoring watersheds or reconnecting floodplains, to the river to help alleviate flooding and drought, but also looking further downstream in the coastal areas at mangrove restoration or seagrass protection, and providing a list of potential interventions that can be done, and providing kind of a specific recipe and a stepwise approach for engineers to understand the intervention, how it can be used, what species of plants they need to use, who they need to bring into the discussion, and how this can be, integrated with communities in the area. So this is, I think, a good example of how we can start to shift public funds from specifically only gray infrastructure and starting to have a bit of more of a look at hybrid or green approaches. This also is supported by the Nature-Based Solutions Global Standard that was developed by IUCN. So while the global standard doesn't focus specifically on public funding, there are a number of criteria that need to be met to consider your intervention in nature-based solution. So this is also providing a bit of guidance, a bit more taking from this very broad abstract idea of nature-based solutions and helping to develop concrete interventions and understanding exactly how they can be funded moving forward and how they can be sustainable moving forward. So I hope that answers a bit of the question. I know Rafael just added some links in the chat box. So the guidebook is there also. And yeah, we're happy to share more information on that.
Thank you, Katie. One more comment from Matthew Anderson, also another question, suggesting that there's some great aquaculture alternatives to help with food, but there's cautions about looking at the protection of biodiversity and also restricting the risk of spreading invasive species and disease. Great success observed with Pangaseous aquaculture in Angyan province, so something we can look at. And of course, great lead offered by Ambassador Sirivat in his comment. Thank you, Matthew. So I think with this, we can now move to some of the closing remarks and looking forward to some additional dialogue, which will build also on recommendations that were developed throughout this NBS-specific dialogue. Brian, over to you for closing. I think we're a little bit late, but not that much.
Thank you, Ralph. I'll be quick. Well, I want to thank all of our panelists and the ambassadors for their keynote addresses as we walk through some of the challenges that the region faces to implementing NBS, as well as some of the early success stories tonight. I encourage all of you to read through our report. We put a link in the report for the report in the chat earlier in the event. This is rich information about opportunities that speaks directly to which institutions or which key actors or NGOs can take these opportunities forward, as well as identifying a number of challenges. The Benji Park is kind of highlighted as a champion case study for urban NBS, and we all visited there, those who participated in the conference in December, and had an excellent tour, a field study tour of the urban park in Bangkok. Just to leave you with one other point is that we look forward to seeing these recommendations turn into action in future activities and announcements from the U.S. Department of State. This is something that always happens after the reports are launched. In a matter of months, we often see reactions and these ideas get put to work. And that is the hard work of a Track 1.5 policy dialogue coming to life. That's the benefit of bringing together civil society, grassroots champions, government agencies, international organizations to sit and think about these solutions over the course of a few days and think of ways that collaboration can advance solutions to nature-based solutions in the region. So with that, I just also want to close with a few announcements about upcoming events related to the Mekong and the Mekong-US partnership. On Monday, next week at 9 a.m. Eastern Time and 8 p.m. Bangkok or Indochina time, we'll be hosting our second Mekong Water Data Hour on sand mining, and this is supported by the U.S. Mekong Partnership. please come to that if you're interested in how sand mining is changing the way that the Mekong works for the people of the Mekong. And then next week, from the 14th to the 16th of March, the Sustainable Infrastructure Partnership, also supported by the Mekong-US Partnership, is holding the big Mekong Research Symposium in Chiang Rai, Thailand, with over 200 registrants already signed up to go. I'd love to be there. I'm not able to go, but I know many on this call are going to be there, and IUCN will be there representing, as well as our good colleague, Courtney Weatherby. And then finally, in early April, there's the Mekong Summit with an international conference on the 2nd and 3rd, which is open for registration. And hopefully those of you who are interested in the future of the Mekong can attend the Mekong Summit in Vientiane, Laos. IUCN, as a development partner, will be attending the summit as well, and we look forward to their contributions to the proceedings of the summit. So with that, I'm going to close down our event and encourage you to read through our report, and we'll see you at the end of the summer for our next launch of our 6th policy dialogue report, which will focus on trafficking and cyber-enabled crime, a very different set of issues from nature-based solutions. And we look forward to seeing what participants in that event held in July will come up with for solutions to challenges in the region. Thank you, everyone. Good morning and good night. Take good care.